Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our fourth annual Founders Award series. Today is the second of four events that are happening each Thursday in May from noon to 1 o'clock. We are honoring 8 outstanding women in our community for their accomplishments, their courage, and their example. And now, please meet the 2021 Founders Award honorees. Received this beautiful engraved silver plate tray donated by Krogan's Jewel Box, wrapped in this beautiful package. While we honor these women, we are also highlighting the work of Trident Literacy and the critical role women play in the education of their families. Women and girls around the world with low literacy face many challenges and are at risk for major issues, including poverty, sex trafficking, infectious diseases, incarceration, gender inequality, violence, and child labor. More than 43 million adults in the U.S. cannot read, write, or do basic math above a third grade level. 65% are women. At Trident Literacy, 56% of our students are women, trying to make a better life for themselves and their children. An old proverb says, when you educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a family. Take Abraham Lincoln, for example. Lincoln's father never learned to read and could barely sign his name. It was his mother, Nancy Hanks, who was the strong influence on her young children. Lincoln once said, "All that I am or hoped ever to be, I get from my mother." Research tells us that when women increase their skills, they increase their income. When they increase their income, they use their new earnings to improve their education, health, and nutrition, and that of their families. They become better able to read to their young children and help them with their schoolwork. They set an example. They teach their children that education is important. Thank you all for supporting Trident Literacy. You are changing lives and making the world a better place for all humankind. And now a special shout out to our founder, Pat Gibson. Pat had 2 experiences that led to the founding of Trident Literacy. Once she was asked by an older man at the local card shop if a greeting card said the right thing for his grandson. When she paid for her purchase, the clerk thanked Pat for helping the man and said, "He's in here all the time buying cards, but he can't read them." Another time at the voter registration office, Pat watched an older woman at the front of the line approach the desk. The clerk handed the woman an index card and told her that successful registration required her to read the contents of it. The woman turned the card over and upside down, studied it carefully, and placed it back on the desk and left. Since she couldn't read, she couldn't register to vote. These experiences planted the seed that launched Trident Literacy in 1972. In the beginning, Pat matched up students and volunteer tutors and kept track on index cards that she kept in a shoebox under her bed. From that small shoebox, Trident Literacy has grown into an award-winning adult education program with locations throughout the Tri-County. On average, Trident Literacy provides instruction to more than 800 students annually with the help of nearly 150 volunteers. In 49 years, tens of thousands of adults have increased their skills, earned their GED, learned English as a second language, gone on to higher education, training programs and apprenticeships, and qualified for jobs. They have changed the life course for themselves and their families and reversed the cycle of generational poverty and illiteracy for generations to come. Thank you, Pat. As Margaret Mead so eloquently said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And now, a big thank you to our sponsors.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Trident Literacy's fourth annual Founders Award Series. The Post and Courier is proud to be the equity sponsor for the fourth consecutive year. The Post and Courier has an obvious stake in the fight against illiteracy. As the Low Country's leader in print and digital journalism, we stand on our award-winning content. But as long as there are members of our community that lack the basic skills necessary to read what we publish, our job is far from done. That is why we are here today. We understand that literacy has never been more important than it is right now. It is fundamental to both personal and community success. With the skills taught at Trident Literacy, our Lowcountry citizens can engage with confidence in the world around them, improve our community, achieve economic prosperity, and build productive lives for their families. On behalf of the Post and Courier, I enthusiastically congratulate all of the Founders Award honorees. Congratulations also to Trident Literacy for your impressive 49-year track record of helping people change the course of their lives. I now have the pleasure of introducing today's first honoree and my friend, Julie Armstrong. Julie Armstrong was first elected in 1992 to the office of Charleston County Clerk of Court. She is the record keeper for common pleas, general sessions, and family courts, while also charged with docket management and fiduciary responsibilities. In 2017, the Chief Justice increased her responsibilities by giving her authority over the criminal docket as well. She oversees a staff of 82 employees who docket over 35,000 cases and collects and processes approximately $36 million annually in county and state revenue and court-ordered support. In her capacity as Clerk of Court, Julie has been recognized as the most technologically based clerk's office in the state. She has served as president of the South Carolina Association of Clerks of Court and Registers of Deeds and the South Carolina Association of Counties. In 2017, she was named Clerk of Court of the Year in South Carolina, and the Charleston Council proclaimed March 14th as Julie Armstrong Day in recognition of her public service. Armstrong was raised in a strong military family and proudly claims deep roots in the Charleston community. And she is a graduate of the College of Charleston. She grew up on James Island, married her high school sweetheart, Jim Armstrong, and they were blessed with 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Julie Armstrong.
Will be just a moment while we're getting Julie on stage. Thanks for waiting.
I'll just explain a little bit about the format for today. After Julie speaks, Julie will have 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll introduce our next honoree, and she'll have 3 minutes to speak, make an opening statement, and then we'll proceed with a series of questions and have a wonderful discussion. Julie, please go ahead. She's muted.
I believe Julie is having some technical issues with her microphone and camera. Robbie, I'm going to bring you back on, and you can go on ahead and introduce Susan as well, and then we will have our remarks from Julie. All right, Robbie will be joining us to introduce our other honoree today, Susan Dunn.
Thank you. Susan K. Dunn, a member of the South Carolina Bar since 1977, has been the legal director for the ACLU of South Carolina since 2009. Prior to joining the ACLU, she was in private practice in Charleston with extensive practice in both the family court and the Court of Common Pleas. She graduated from Duke University and UNC Chapel Hill School of Law. Dunn litigated Ferguson versus the City of Charleston, a groundbreaking Fourth Amendment case that was argued successfully before the U.S. Supreme Court and the Fourth Circuit. In 1977, South Carolina Women Lawyers Association awarded her the Bissell Award, given annually to recognize a person who paved the way to success for women attorneys in South Carolina. Dunn is the proud mother of Anna Hoppius, a pediatrician in North Charleston, and Jacob Hoppius, a teacher who works in Guatemala City. And she is now the doting grandmother of two remarkable girls. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Dunn.
Well, I guess they'd like me to go ahead and speak while we're still trying to roust Julie out of the court system somehow. It's my honor to be here today, and it's certainly my honor to share the stage with my friend Julie Armstrong, who's been a good ally through the years. I'm honored to be part of this because reading has been so much a part of my life. I've worked primarily as a lawyer and a minister, and I read my way through both of those professions, but I really read my way through life. And reading has been a way to gain information. It's been a way to work my imagination. It's also been access to compassion because I can read about people whose lives are very different than mine, and I can feel for them and know how they are, at least somewhat. I've found reading to be a source of comfort when I was in times of trouble, and also a source of challenge when I was in times of complacency. And I know that the Trident Literacy Association has really given the gift of reading to many, many people, and I honor the work that they have done. But I want to share a special personal story in that when my daughter, Anna Hoppius, was a student at the Academic Magnet in the late 90s, she did her senior thesis by working with the Trident Literacy Association. She was just a young woman, but she went in and worked on a manual to help the volunteers who were working with people who had English as a second language. She worked very hard and created with others an excellent manual. And the Trident Literacy Association gave her a platform to develop her skills, but they believed in her and gave her a chance. And I'm very thankful for what the Trident Literacy Association did to give that young woman wings that thrust her in a movement toward her professional life of service. But I thank the association, and again, I'm really honored to share the stage with Julie, and I think she's going to be getting on soon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, hi, it's Julie Armstrong. Thank you for your patience, and I'm sorry we're having some technical difficulties, but it wouldn't be life if we didn't have a little glitch. I want to thank the Trident Literacy Association for this wonderful honor. It's beyond words to express my thanks and appreciation for all the amazing things that they do in our community, and I see it every day in my life.
So it seems to we're having a little glitch. So how about if we take a quick break and hear from two of our sponsors? Don't go away.
When something's just right, it's hard to find, but easy to recognize. You know it's just the perfect fit. At South State Bank, that's us. The sweet spot between a big bank and a small one. So you get the services you need, combined with the service you need too. High tech and high touch. Sophisticated and simple. Right here at South State.
I know young reporters at different places really across the country that know the Post and Courier's name, and they know the work that we do here. One of the things I really like to do is meet people face to face. You can tell that they're more invested in giving you that information and that understanding when you've taken the time to be there and meet them. The reporters who are doing this work and doing this journalism are invested in the community the same way that our readers are. We live here, we work here, and it's a priority here to be able to serve our readers in the way that helps them the most and informs them the most. We're able to do the work that we do here every day at the Post and Courier because of our subscribers. So to support, please subscribe.
Hi again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for so much technical difficulty. Thank you for your patience. Can everyone hear me?
You're good, Julie.
Jen, can y'all? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm not sure what you heard earlier or not, but again, let me start. I'm Julie Armstrong, and I'm indeed honored beyond words for this recognition from the Trident Literacy Program. They are so near and dear to our hearts and our community. And I, like my good friend Susan Dunn, have a personal story. My husband was a mentor with Trident Literacy and was assigned 4 adult students back in the late 80s that worked in his department. And one of the students couldn't read at all. The others were barely reading. And they've made lifetime friendships through Trident Literacy Program and opened up so many doors for these individuals, doors that you wouldn't expect. Just as you know, the simple reading of stop signs, traffic signs, prescription bottles, checkbooks, notices like that. So I want to thank Trident Literacy for all their commitment to this community. I see it every day in my line of work as clerk of court. Literacy is key. As we know, home is the first school for many people. And I see it in the courts. And so I applaud Trident Literacy for their efforts. And I thank the Post and Courier for their strong support and all of our tremendous supporters that support the literacy program. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That's inspiring. I'm bringing Eileen and Susan on stage now, and we're just going to go on ahead and do our discussion portion of the program.
Right.
I'm going to leave everybody on stage. Eileen should be joining us in just a second.
Okay.
And we have some wonderful questions for you. And then after that portion of it, we'll be showing you some student stories of success and a few more of our sponsors. So Eileen, I'm going to pass it over to you, and we'll do 3 seconds without a break.
Thank you both so much. I have to say that until just now, I had no idea that you both had such a personal connection to Trident Literacy. So again, the format, I'm going to ask the first question, and you'll each have a few minutes to respond, and we can go back and forth and talk about it. But you both have such interesting backgrounds. One of the things we help our students with at Trident Literacy is choosing a career path. Tell us how you chose your career path and how you climbed the ladder and got to where you are today. Julie, you go first.
Sure, I'm delighted to. Well, I started out in the corporate world when I graduated from College of Charleston, but I am a Charleston girl, and in the corporate world, we were having to travel and relocate, and I wanted to be home in the pluff mud. So I moved back to Charleston and took a pay cut and started working with the district attorney's office, the solicitor's office, as we call it in Charleston, as a victim witness advocate in criminal and civil courts, which was a complete career change for me when I came from corporate hotel background. So as a victim witness advocate, I started that. We went through the Victims' Bill of Rights arguments and saw history in the making for what's now known as the Victims' Bill of Rights. And I moved up the chain through that and became an administrator. And then the clerk of court was retiring after 24 years. And the local lawyers talked me into running for public office. I'd never been active in public office before other than voting. And I was very blessed, ran and won, and I have held that position for quite some time here in Charleston and proud to have done it.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Susan?
Well, I got into the legal profession sort of by the back door. I thought that I was going to be a Methodist minister, but when I started working sort of in that area, it became clear I didn't really have the right personality, and I was in love with the wrong man. So I tried to figure out what else I was going to do, and I went to law school because I didn't have to write a big paper to get through, and I didn't have to take any other courses to get into it, and I could afford it, so I went to law school. But the day I started law school, I had never been inside a law office for any reason.
So, Julie, you in your bio, it says you handle 35,000 cases. What is a typical day like for you?
Chaos. There is no typical day. In the court system, you never know you have a schedule that's planned, but people's lives are disrupted every day, and they come to the courts, for resolution. Some through emergencies like orders of protection, domestic violence, juvenile crime. Those all take priority. So every day is a new experience. We just kind of react to what's given to us and try to get it through and help the people the best we can. Because to them, this day in the court is probably the most important day of their lifetime. So we treat everyone like that here.
So your staff of 82 people helps you do that?
Yes, we do, with 16 courtrooms. And again, like during the pandemic, many businesses were closed. We were not. We were open every day because you have to supply service to the customers. That's what the courts are here for. And it's important for our community to have resolutions.
By the way, if anyone watching has a question, please put it in the chat box. We want your questions too. I have a question for you, Susan, as a reader. Are there any books in particular that you would like to mention that have changed your life or had such a major influence on you?
Well, one book that I would mention is a memoir by Marcia Davenport. It's Too Strange for Fiction, which is a wonderful, wonderful autobiography that I think everyone should read, because it really it's one of those biographies that puts a life in perspective. In her biography, one concert takes an entire chapter when one of her marriages only took 2 paragraphs. So it's a very interesting book.
Okay, thank you. So that's the first segment. We're going to take a quick 1-minute break to hear from our sponsors. Well, you know what? Maybe we won't. Why don't we just go on to the next question? For each of you, can you share some personal stories regarding your experiences Today we're focusing on women, but these can be really anything you want to talk about. Some of the highs, some of the lows. Susan, you go first this time.
Well, I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about now, because I'm just about to end my time at the ACLU, and I think one of the most interesting experiences is when I started that job, because I couldn't figure out what in the world I was supposed to do. I started a job that I had an empty computer and empty drawers, and I had to figure out how to be a legal director when I had no idea how to do it. And I got a lot of help from many of the folks in the bar, and also from my personal friends who helped me just not be too crazy when I was trying to, as they say, build the airplane as I flew it.
Here's a question in the chat box. Is there a particular woman who influenced your life? Susan, while we're on you.
I think the person I would think about, just because I have been thinking about it, was a woman who was the campus minister when I was in college, whose name was Helen Crotwell. She was from Newberry, South Carolina, and she was somebody who really knew how to bring people to the table, so that she would bring, a bishop with a hippie and serve them chocolate fondue and really change the world one meal at a time, but also with her just sense of reverence.
Okay, Julie, how about some of your personal experiences in the courtroom or leading up to it?
I would say for me, the greatest challenge is when you take over, especially as an elected official, you step right into the job first day with no training, and they hand you the keys and say good luck to you. And there was very few women in leadership when I came to the county, so there wasn't a lot of female mentors to tell me their stories and share. But I'm with Susan. I had two particular women in the Berkeley and county clerks, Mary Brown and Barbara Scott, that became mentors for my life for me, that helped me direct through the court system. Because as I said, there was no training manual. They just said, here are the keys, here's the checkbook, and good luck. So you kind of learn on your own. And then I think that actually built my character even stronger.
How about, you mentioned before, people coming in needing things in an emergency. Are there any cases, in particular, are there any situations with women? Here's a question about your experiences working with the immigrant women.
Right.
Are there any of those that you can share?
They are. Well, we have all walks of life come in, particularly in family court with domestic violence. And we've seen that with the pandemic. Our numbers have risen with that people being, contained in a lockdown environment has not been conducive for many. So yes, we're dealing with that with all populations, and our interaction with many that come to the counter. Of course, again, the first time they've been here, they're fearful. They don't understand the system, the language. They don't understand the system. And the state courts say, if you come to the window, you're held to these standards to understand. So we work closely with the state, constantly trying to fine tune those, and the local agencies to help us.
Okay. You kind of are frozen, so I'm going to go to Susan. Susan, what are your experiences working with women and working with immigrant women?
I work with women everywhere that I go, represented a whole lot of women in my practice, but particularly some things that I've done with immigrant women involved, when the DACA status was made possible for young people who've been brought here as children and were given DACA status, so they were allowed to stay. There was a real problem about them being able to enroll in colleges and technical colleges in South Carolina, because the schools were not clear that those students who had DACA status should be considered legal residents. And we were able, on behalf of several of those students, to convince the colleges that the DACA status did make them legal residents, and they were able to matriculate and become, valuable members of our community.
Thank you. We're going to take a station break now and have a word from two of our sponsors and meet some of our students.
Meet Kashawn. She is a single mother of 3 boys, a 5-year-old and 4-year-old twins. Despite her multiple health issues, she is determined to get her GED, which will help her get a better job. She is dedicated to creating a better life for herself and her children. Her education managers at Trident Literacy Association are helping her cope and gain the skills she needs to succeed. Meet Keon. He will turn 21 this month. After he aged out of foster care, he found himself living on his own in a food desert with no transportation, working in the fast food industry. 2 things happened for Keon because of Trident Literacy Association. He got a position at the Sustainability Institute and now earns a nice stipend in addition to gaining job skills, and a generous donor gave him a bicycle. He has passed 3 sections of the GED test and is on his way to success.
What sets the Steinberg Law Firm apart from other firms is our genuine compassion and desire to help each and every one of our clients.
Our motto of getting the firm behind you says it all.
We have a great track record representing injured folks.
Everybody collaborates on each case together.
We have a collective mission and a passion to help injured workers. Get the firm behind you.
Okay, do we have sound from you, Julie?
Yes, ma'am. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So for the final question, well, actually a few more questions. What do you think is the most significant issue facing women in Charleston today? Julie, you go first.
Sure. Well, today I would say the COVID. And I say that as an employer, as an employee, as a daughter and a mother and a grandmother, that the COVID has just given us, in my lifetime, that's been my biggest challenge. You're trying to balance work, your concerns of your family, you want to keep your children, your grandchildren, your elderly parents safe. And as we know in our world of women, we're juggling all these balls all the time, with everyone has such high expectations for us to perform. And I would say during the pandemic, it's just been unbelievable, the stress and the strain, mainly because of the safety. We don't know about this disease and you worry.
Thank you. Susan?
And I don't know that I could come up with just a specific issue, but I think the 2 issues that I hear most often women struggling with are the caretaking roles, so child care, and also the care of older relatives, and also housing. They really impact the women in our community and make it very difficult for them to have the stable and full lives that they should have.
So here's some questions that are coming in the chat. I'll read both of these and you can respond however. How do you find inspiration? You both talked about stressful situations. How do you personally find inspiration and energy when times are tough, like now during COVID? Julie? I think she's frozen. So Susan?
Well, I read bad books. I read books that are just distracting. I can't tell you how many Jack Reacher books I've read during the pandemic. Just things like that that just take me to a different place.
Okay. And what advice would you give a young woman today or young women today who are restarting their lives for a second or third time or entering your field?
I can say this, the first thing I would say is take care of yourself no matter what you do. But also, don't accept something that doesn't give you pleasure. That work is hard, but work can also give you pleasure. And it's really important to look for something that all of you can show up to do, and not to have to kind of filter parts of you out.
Julie, you're back. Did you hear those questions or do you want me to repeat them?
I did not hear them.
Okay. So we're talking about how you find inspiration in these times of trouble, and also what advice would you give to women who are entering or re-entering the workforce? Oops. Well, here's another question for you, Susan. This is from LaVonda Brown, who is one of our honorees coming up. Books that are a distraction are great for taking the mental health break, and we all need that right now. Okay, that's just a comment on that. Okay, so I have a question for you, Susan, because in your bio, you mentioned the Ferguson versus the City of Charleston case and the Fourth Amendment. So that got us all looking up what was the Fourth Amendment and what was that all about. So why don't you tell us more about that?
Well, that was a case that challenged policy that was created by the medical university and the solicitor's office and the police that set up a process whereby women who were pregnant or had just given birth were tested for cocaine. And if they tested positive, then they were turned over to the police. And that was a case that really tested whether that, or challenged whether that kind of testing could be allowed. And the folks who defended the testing said it was just medical testing. And our position was that it was a search like in a criminal search and had to comply with the Fourth Amendment. It ended up our position was correct, and that in fact you can't search somebody under the ruse of it being medical and then turn it directly over to the police. So not only was that bad law, it was really bad public health.
So continuing on, just in terms of what the American Civil Liberties Union is all about, can you shed some light on some of the prominent issues that you face locally and maybe even nationally?
The ACLU is one of these wonderful organizations that is not a single issue organization, so that we deal with everything from separation of church and state to LGBT plus issues. Primarily our focus in South Carolina in recent years has been in reform of the criminal justice system. So we talk about rethinking and reinvesting in the community needs for public safety so that all the money doesn't go into policing. We've also recently challenged the effectiveness of the governor's return to in-person work order. So we work on all kinds of things that affect the rights of people to function within the community.
So are these brought on by individual lawsuits, or you just tackle an issue? How does it work?
It's often by individual lawsuits, but we also get involved in advocacy at the legislature and in within communities.
So everyone is freezing up here today. I don't know why. So we still have some time left. So getting back to some of our original questions about, just as a young person, did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer? Susan, she's frozen too. Can you put it in the chat box? Well, a question is coming in. Not sure if we're going to be able to get anyone back. But I will just say then, thank you so much to both of you, to Susan and to Julie, for being with us today and allowing us to honor you and bring attention to the great work that Trident Literacy is doing. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today. We're going to close, but I want to remind you to join us next Thursday, May 13th at noon, from noon to 1, for part 3 in our series. Oh, okay. Okay. So, Susan, you're back, but I think we're wrapping up. And want to invite everyone back next week for part 3 in our series, when our guests will be LaVonda Brown, the director of the YWCA, and Linda Kettner, a organizational community activist and donor advocate. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.